while we're on display at the four-wheel drive show, I call my friend Oliver at Headspace Campers. And I say, Ollie, I've got a bit of space, mate. Bring your truck down. He goes, oh, I'm not doing it. And I say, mate, use the space. It's available. And I say, come and just show your beautiful product. All your competitors are here. So this guy drove with his Troopy, towed his 76. He just built a new conversion for his 76 series, which is on Project Overlander stand. It looks fantastic as well. And he towed it overnight, right? And this is Ollie, guys, in person at the show with us.
I love it.
The reason why I wanted Ollie here is because, you know, I spent a great amount of money putting that thing and I've been very happy with it. And I thought, you know what, I'm one of those guys. If I like something, I invite people, you know, I consider them my friends. I want them to show off their product. And it's so clear because, Ollie, I walk around the show, right? And there's a couple of conversions out there, right? There is the bolt-on ones and there is...
There's a few different types.
Yeah, a few different types.
They've all got their advantages. Like they're all, pros and cons.
Such humility. I enjoyed Ollie's product because when I found him online, it is because your product just looks slick. It's contoured with the shape of the vehicle. And I must say,
there's a big aspect.
All of my colleagues, when I pop that thing open, they go, what's going on? To the untrying eye, nobody even knew they had a conversion on it.
I think that's what the market needed. It's something that looks integrated, part of the vehicle, and it doesn't look like a bolted on extra component. When you're buying a $100,000 car, you still want it to look good. You've got that aesthetics is in your mind. And then I think to make it also have that extra functionality of the higher tilt roof, so you can sort of utilize the full length of the bed instead of having to sleep on the access doors as well. I think when you combine the two together, it does become quite an advantageous product to put on the vehicle.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about it, isn't it? You have a product that's so stealthy and slick with the contour of the body, and yet when it opens up, it's more space than your competitors.
That's why I built it. I was where you were 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a lap. I just got back from Europe and I know I wanted a roof conversion. I looked at the two competitors that are, well, one's Australian made, one's made overseas, and looked at them both, and they both had the same limitation of you still felt like you're in a swag. And when the bed goes up, you still can only use the back half of the car. And I just thought it wouldn't be hard to go a higher roof and have awnings that cover all the windows. So when it's raining, you can still have the airflow, because I love my airflow. Like, I've got to have it. And then my other business is the timber ceiling business. We do it for architectural houses all over Australia. And that's when I thought if I could combine the two together, it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, that's why the first thing people come in my car, they go, ooh, they got the wood and stuff. And I'm like, you turned a cruiser into a California cruiser. You know, it's you don't remember, you know, those 60s surf wagons?
Yeah,
it's got those wood paneling.
It feels a bit more classic.
Yes.
It's Australian hardwood. It's a good way to go.
You shared with me that you got a few other products coming online under your banner. You want to give us a sneak peek what they are?
We are working on an 80 Series LandCruiser for the US market. There's huge demand over there. Troopies here, 80 Series in the US, that's how they operate. And they've been asking us for about a year now to make it. So we've got an 80 in the shop and we're making it. And we're also going to tackle the Grenadier as well.
What, the Grenadier?
A lot of our Dubai installers and now customers have said, hey, we want a Grenadier roof conversion to challenge what's been put out there. Can you do it? So we're in the process of doing that too.
So I'm a layman when it comes to a Grenadier, but my own assumptions, which is generally always wrong. A traditional Grenadier owner is a very different owner to a 70 series owner.
Yeah.
Like a 70 series owner, I mean, it hurts, but we'll drill holes and we'll cut things up. Whereas a Grenadier owner is like, don't touch anything.
It's actually funny you say that, because you've got your two halves of the Grenadiers. You've got the guys who had Defenders, who will drill holes, and you've got the other demographic that sort of just want a turnkey product. It's going to be a hard conversion to do with the ADR compliance because there's so many curtain airbags in it, but we tackled it with the high ace and we got through the hurdles of the high ace because that does have curtain airbags in the back. So
you built a high ace?
Yeah. Yes. So we're just going to carry through what we learned from that. It shouldn't take too long to do it. The high ace was about 12 months. We're thinking about 6 months for the Grenadier.
Wow.
We'll have it released.
In our day job, we do import, export and what have you, and there's always this narrative about bringing manufacturing back and so forth and what have you.
To Australia.
I'm all for it. One of my counters to that is that, yes, I like the idea, but is it realistic or feasible? Where is the scalability?
To bring manufacturing back.
Yeah, because there's no scalability.
It's not going to happen with a Labor government.
No, right.
We're two socialists. It's all about the wages and the cost of living.
That's right.
Which is generated from putting the wages up. We're purely Australian based. Everything's made in Australia. It's all now made in our own workshop. We physically cannot compete
That's right.
with the alley cabs of the world because they're making a product with labour a quarter the price of ours. And the thing is, it gets to a point where people are happy to pay extra for Australian made, but they're not going to pay that much extra.
Yeah.
And if wages keep going up like they are and the cost of living and all the food and everything gets more expensive, like it's driving itself out. As much as the government's putting incentives, like they're doing a lot of stuff with R&D, which we're applying for as well. And they're trying to do a lot of cash back and cash injections into small companies like us that are trying to bring manufacturing in. And they do help. I don't want to be pleading, but it's not enough.
Yeah.
Like it still doesn't cover or make you comparable to like a Chinese import.
That's right.
And
they have scalability, whereas we're capped. Right, we can only
100%.
push out so much at a given time. We cannot scale. Right,
Yeah.
so it's almost like the government wants us to do more, but like our hands are tied back because we got no labor. Who can afford to live in this city for them to do the work for me?
Yeah.
So my message to the government is, it's not our job to make our employees afford their homes. You know what I'm trying to say?
It is hard.
It's hard.
It's definitely a chicken and egg situation. We do have two types of labour force. We've got the guys who just get in and get it done, and then you've got the guys who just look for every shortcut possible, and they're the ones who are calling workplace health and safety, for a plug that hasn't been tagged and tested, even though it's brand new from Bunnings. We got picked up for that, and it's like, hang on a minute, I just bought that lead, it's not tagged and tested. So then we had to shut down the whole workshop for an extension lead, and you're thinking, well, how's the government helping us?
Nah.
I'm trying to we're employing 20 staff now. We've got 7 apprentices coming through that we're training up. We got first year apprentices on welders. Like you don't get that in any workshop. They're sweeping floors and making coffees. That's all they do. So we're doing everything we can, and then they come in and stamp their foot over something like an extension lead that's not tagged and tested, even though it's brand new, and then shut the whole place down. So like, you tell me how you're meant to deal with that.
And meanwhile, they want you to build up more in manufacturing.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. We want to bring yeah. It's, you can't win.
Well, you can't win, but you can't win on the opposite thing, going back to more fun stuff, whereas this is why you have created a product that's got these features, which is for the positive why. It doesn't look like it's a conversion, and yet when you do open it up, it's the biggest conversion. Fantastic.
It's just time.
You just got to need time. But the thing is, you've got that much points of difference that people are willing to pay more and wait longer. Well, I have.
Yeah, they do. It's 6 months lead time. Yeah, they do. Yeah.
But if you want this product, you've got to wait.
Yeah.
That's it. Just wait. It's a good product.
I think as well, like we do have a big emphasis on customer service as well. I think it's a big component. When you're paying so much for a product, you need to know that there's that support there if something does go wrong. And we try as hard as we can to back that up as best we can. So it comes part and parcel of it.
I'm stoked with it, and I'm so happy that you're here because...
Thanks for inviting me down. I'm glad you called me because I wasn't going to come.
No, you weren't. He was literally like, are you coming? No. And I'm like, why are you so blasé? This is one of the most important shows. And it's like, all right, I'll just build a 70, I'll tow it down.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for coming. Thanks for inviting me. Cheers.